So, guys, Dak Prescott has just made a bold statement during a recent interview that's already getting plenty of attention around the NFL. And, training camp just around the corner and Super Bowl expectations continuing to grow, Dak's latest comments have given Cowboys fans even more reason to believe this team is ready to compete at the highest level. So today, let's break down what Dak had to say and why so many people are talking about it. What's up, Cowboys Nation? Welcome to the NFL Playbook Cowboys. If you're new here, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Alright, so let's get into it. Dak Prescott was recently at a press event, and honestly guys, the way he talked about this upcoming season, it sounded different. I mean, I've heard Dak talk about being excited before. Every quarterback says that stuff heading into a new year, right? But this time, listen close to what he actually said, because it tells you everything about where this team is right now. He said, and I'm paraphrasing here, that he's healthy, he's ready, and that from this point forward, nothing matters except the postseason. Nothing else. That's a heavy statement coming from a guy who's been in this league for a decade. Now, think about that for a second. Dak basically told everybody, look, the regular season stuff, I've already proven that. I've put up the numbers. I've done what I needed to do in the regular season. The only thing left now is winning in January. And honestly, that's a mature way to look at it, because Dak knows exactly what people say about him. He knows the perception. Some folks act like he doesn't understand the criticism, but trust me, he understands it better than anybody. He's not naive about it. He knows being the quarterback of the Dallas Cowboys means every single year, the expectation is Super Bowl or nothing. That's just how it works in Dallas. It was that way before Dak got here, and it's going to be that way long after he's gone. But here's the thing that really stood out to me. Dak sounded genuinely excited, not fake excited, not the kind of stuff players say just to make headlines. He sounded like a guy who finally feels like he's got real pieces around him. And you know what? When you look at what's actually happened around this team over the last year or so, it kind of makes sense why he'd feel that way. Now, let's talk about the defense for a second, because that's a massive part of this. Dak specifically mentioned Christian Parker and how excited he is about this new coordinator. And look, I get it. Nobody was exactly jumping for joy about the previous defensive staff. It just didn't feel like the right fit, honestly. Matt Eberflus seemed like a solid teacher, someone who could work with position groups in the classroom. But leading a whole defense, calling the games, getting players to buy in, that's just a different skill set completely. Christian Parker coming in, that's a totally different energy. You can already tell the players are buying into what he's teaching. And when your quarterback is talking about the defensive coordinator with that much enthusiasm, that tells you something is clicking behind the scenes. Then you add in the health factor. Dak made a point of saying he's healthy, and if you go back and think about it, this might genuinely be one of the healthiest situations this roster has been in for a while. You've got DeMarvion Overshown working his way back. You've got guys like Darren Bland and Jalen Thompson expected to be good to go. When your whole roster is actually intact heading into camp, that changes everything. You're not scrambling to figure out who's playing what position. You're just building chemistry and building habits, which is exactly what a team needs this time of year. And can we talk about Quinnen Williams for a second? Bringing him in was honestly one of those moves that doesn't get talked about enough. Pairing him up front with the other pieces this defense picked up, it gives this unit a completely different identity. This isn't a defense that's just hoping to survive anymore. This is a defense that's supposed to actually create problems for opposing offenses. And that's exactly the kind of thing that gets a quarterback fired up, because Dak knows better than anyone what it's like to carry an offense almost by himself while the defense struggles to get stops. He's lived that reality for years. I also want to mention that Dak talked about taking a group of his pass catchers out to Park City before camp started. Full participation, everybody out there working together, building that chemistry away from the cameras and away from the noise. That kind of stuff matters more than people realize. It's not just a vacation, it's guys putting in work together, building trust before the season even starts. And when your quarterback is bringing up things like that unprompted, it tells you the locker room culture is in a good place right now. Now, here's where it gets interesting, because right around the same time Dak was making these comments, there was a whole debate happening about where he actually ranks among quarterbacks in this league. You had one analyst kind of downplaying Dak, saying he doesn't belong near the top of the list, and then you had Chase Daniel come out and basically shut that whole argument down. Chase Daniel broke down actual film, real plays, showing how Dak manipulates safeties, how he looks off defenders, how he throws receivers open in windows that shouldn't even exist. And after watching that breakdown, it's honestly clear that Dak has cracked the top 10 quarterbacks in this league right now, and plenty of people think he deserves to be ranked even higher. What I found interesting is how that whole debate ties right back into what Dak said about postseason expectations. Because think about it, the guys who actually study the tape, the guys who break down the coverages and the reads, they respect Dak. It's mostly people who just look at playoff win totals without any context who want to argue otherwise. But Chase Daniel basically proved with actual evidence that this is a guy operating at an elite level mentally. He's not just talented physically, he's outthinking defenses in real time. That's the difference between a good quarterback and a great one. So, when you put all of this together, you start to understand why Dak feels the way he feels heading into this season. He's healthy. He's got a defensive coordinator everyone actually believes in. He's got new pieces up front on defense. He's got continuity on offense now that the coaching staff isn't changing every single year. This isn't a situation where he's walking into a brand new system and trying to learn everything from scratch again. This is year 2 under this staff, and usually that's when things start opening up. You look at similar situations around the league. Offenses tend to take a jump in year 2 once everybody is comfortable and the playbook starts expanding. Guys have already talked about George Pickens getting used more in motion, running more route concepts, getting lined up in different spots. That's exactly the kind of expansion you'd expect once a coaching staff really knows what it has. And that's exactly what Dak is hinting at. He's not saying it outright, but you can read between the lines. He's saying, we've never had it like this before, not since he's been here. Think about that phrase for a second. In 10 years with this organization, Dak is saying this current setup, this current mix of guys, this current coaching staff, this is the best version of the Cowboys he's been part of. That's not something you just casually say for the media. That means something. Now, I do want to bring up something else Dak touched on because I think it's honestly one of the smartest things he said in a while. He talked about learning from losses. Not just losing and moving on, but actually sitting down and figuring out why you lost, so you don't repeat the same mistake. And if you think back to previous seasons under the old coaching staff, that was kind of the problem, right? This team would win 12 games, but lose the exact same type of game every single time. Same mistakes, same situations, same failures in big moments. The team could beat the average opponents, but when it came to the really good teams, the ones that actually challenge you, something always seemed to go wrong. Dak basically pointed out, without directly calling anyone out, that this team is finally in a position where the front office is actually adjusting instead of running it back with the same results. Think about the moves that have been made over the last couple of years. Bringing in Quinnen Williams, adding pieces up front, drafting Caleb Downs and Malachi Lawrence, making the coaching change at defensive coordinator. These aren't small tweaks. These are the kind of moves that actually show a front office learning from what went wrong, instead of just hoping the same group figures it out differently next time. And that shift alone changes the entire mood heading into camp. And listen, I know some fans are going to say, okay, that's a lot of talk. Let's see it translate on the field. And that's fair, honestly. Talk is talk until it shows up on Sundays. But you can't ignore the fact that the tone around this team feels completely different heading into camp. There's no drama hanging over the locker room. There's no distractions being created off the field. It's just been quiet. And honestly, quiet has been really good for this organization lately. When the only thing being talked about is football, that's usually a good sign. So here's where I land on all of this. Dak Prescott making that statement, saying it's postseason or nothing from here on out, that's not just a quote for headlines. That's a guy who genuinely believes the pieces are finally in place, and for the first time in a while, he's not the only proven difference maker on this roster. Now, obviously, belief only gets you so far. We've seen plenty of teams talk a big game in July and then fall apart once the season actually starts. But between the health, the continuity, and everything this defense added, it's hard not to feel like this version of the Cowboys is walking into camp with a different mindset than previous years. So that's basically the breakdown on everything Dak has been saying lately and why it's got so many people talking. Let me know down in the comments what you think. Do you believe this is finally the year everything clicks? Or do you think we've heard this kind of talk before and it just doesn't hold up once the games start counting? Drop your thoughts below. I read every single comment. If you enjoyed this breakdown, make sure you hit that like button, subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll catch you in the next one.